Hi, welcome to another multi-platform arcade game designer video. This time I'm going to show you how the inventory system works. It's not particularly straightforward for beginners, but it's not too complex, but I think it perhaps needs a little bit of explaining for some people. So without further ado, let's go and see what I've set up in this demonstration project. Now, I've set up 4 objects, 4 different shapes. As you can see, object 0 is a green square, object 1 is a yellow circle, object 2 is a cyan triangle, and object 3 is a white cross. Okay, so once I did that, I went down to the text messages. As you see, text messages always start with the command define messages, and then the text messages are normally displayed underneath in quotes, so hello or game over or something like that. That's if we're using text messages, but we do need to use text messages for objects. That's absolutely essential. As you can see, I've set up a text message, the only text message, message 0, which is the first one, and within the quotes I've got the names of the 4 objects separated by commas. So if you recall, we had a green square, a yellow circle, a cyan triangle, and of course the white cross. So those are now set up in message 0, the first message. Remember that, it's the first message. Okay, so next all we have to do is go to the player event and write some code to pick up the objects and drop them. Now, I've got that on the fire button here. So first things first, we're checking for the fire button. If that's pressed, we then call detect obj, which is the command to see if there's an object where the player is. Now if there is no object, that will put the number 255 into the obj variable. So at that point you know there is no object to pick up, so we bring up the inventory, and now inventory is rather like menu. It has an argument, and this is the argument we've used. It's argument 0, because if you recall, the only message we have in this game so far is the message that contains the names of the objects. So message 0, so we use 0 as the parameter for inv. Now if we decided to put a game over as the first message and then put the names of the objects in a separate message, we'd have used 1. Or if we put, I don't know, lives as a second message and then had the objects below that, then we'd go to inv2. It's always the message number that we've used to store the objects in. But we're using 0, so that's what we use there. And then the player will select the object, and the inventory function will display only the objects that the player has already picked up. It will miss out the objects that the player has not picked up. So when the player then selects an object to drop, it will be placed in the opt variable. So our command to drop the object is put, which puts the object on the screen, xy, which tells the engine where to put the object on the screen, where the player is, and opt is the number of the object that we wish to drop. Well, that's the option that was chosen from the inventory. So that's fairly straightforward. Else, well, the object number was an object was detected, so I just put a get obj in there so that the player will pick up an object if he presses the fire button when he's standing over one. Then I've got a little debounce in there to stop the fire automatically bringing up the menu every time we pick up an object. And that's all we should need. So if we come out of that and run this little game, it's very simple. Here we see the little player sprite here. Nothing too complicated, it's only a very simple example. Now move over to the cyan triangle, we press fire to pick it up and it picks it up. Jump up here, let's pick up the yellow circle, the green square, and finally the white cross. Now let's start dropping them. So if I press fire again, there are no objects to pick up, so it should bring up the inventory. As you can see, I've picked up all those shapes, and I can select one to drop. So I'm going to choose the cyan triangle, and there we go, we've dropped the cyan triangle. If I now drop another object, the cyan triangle is no longer in the player's inventory, so it'll only bring up an inventory of 3 objects. And there you can see we have a choice of the green square, the yellow circle, or the white cross. So let's deposit the yellow circle there. And we can go on doing this with whatever we want to drop. The green square, let's pick up the yellow circle, and then choose another thing to drop. Let's drop the white cross this time. And that's all there is to it. So, very simple. Not too complicated, but just needs a little bit of getting your head around the first time you use it.